Afternoon. Today is the Thursday, March 19, 2015 meeting of the Athens City Planning Commission. All members are present, so a quorum has been established. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the Planning Commission at some point today? If you do, would you like to raise your hand? And do you promise to tell the Planning Commission the truth as you know it? Terrific. Okay. Disposition of minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? And are there any additions?
No, I'll move that.
Problems?
Accept the minutes.
Second?
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Moving on to case number 15-03, Verizon Parking Garage Wireless Telecommunications Special Use Permit Modifications. Mr. Paskey, can you again just kind of introduce the audience to this particular case?
I can. As you see in your packet there, this is a modification for an existing tower on top of our parking garage, where they're replacing just 3 sets of 11 by 17. Oh, never mind. Wrong on that. Well, they're here. They'll tell you exactly what's being done as far as the number of antennas that are being swapped out and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But this would fall under what we call a priority 1, which means through our rating system that it is on city-owned property with the lease agreement with the city. So that's what it means by priority 1 on here.
Okay. Did you, if you'd like to come to the podium, were you going to speak to that, or?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. If you can just come to the podium, you could just identify yourself and who you represent.
My name is Debbie Butzer. I represent Verizon Wireless. Currently, we have 6 antennas up there on the parking garage. Those antennas will be coming down and being replaced with 9 new antennas. We're going to be putting up there 9 remote radio heads behind the antennas, 3 junction boxes that will serve the remote radio heads, and 3 hybrid cables, which will also serve the remote radio heads. A structural analysis was done, which passed at 23%, and if there's any other information you'd like from me, will be no tremendous visual difference.
Does the footprint stay the same in terms of what's up there being changed?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, they'll just be 3 additional antennas.
Okay.
I do have the structural analysis. I didn't include it in your packet because it's 20 pages long with a lot of numbers. Mary, you might like reading it.
When I like numbers.
23% mean, didn't you say something about it showed a 23% increase or load, or?
Yeah. Do you understand those?
No, that's why you're here.
Okay. It basically means that the loading on the rooftop passed, and that the rooftop is capable of holding what's up there. And the 23% just means that it passed at a 23%. The loading is capable of holding what's up there with no problem.
Actually, looking at this here, it looks like the structural analysis of the framework, the legs are at 23%, which would be the legs coming down. They're only at 23% capacity, and the diagonal bracing is at 37%, and the base is adequate. So,
Okay.
room to grow.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That's what, okay.
Thank you. You did work better than me at that.
Other questions or concerns from the commission?
What's the timetable on this? I know you were here, trying to get here last time and we got snowed out, so when do you expect to start working on it?
As soon as we get this, I think that's all we need to go is this. We've got the building permit and everything else is in place, so I would think that they would start, I would think within the next few weeks. It'll get started. That's kind of out of my hands, but and I haven't heard. But usually that's the timetable. Once we get everything in place, things get started within 2-3 weeks.
Okay. Let's see. Just to let you be aware that we are going to be doing some renovations or fixes on our parking garage soon.
Okay,
I don't think it will affect anything that you have in terms of tower, but just to give you the heads up that we'll be working on it. as a city.
nothing being done up on the roof that I need to let them know?
What about the roof repair?
This is a different,
That's Horizon. I
That's
think,
Sprint.
is-
Complete
Sprint.
separate,
Complete separate, nothing to do with each other.
won't impact this,
Won't
the
impact
structure they
it.
have?
Their tower's in the center of the parking garage, and Sprint's are on the stair shaft
Stairwell.
elevator tower, stairwell, on top of those roofs.
How will they all communicate if they're all working together up there at the same time?
Through telecommunications.
I think in the past, we used, George was the contact point person.
Yeah, George will be the
Okay.
contact person.
I don't think there'd really be any effect, since you're talking about just things up on the tower. We'll probably be putting another coating on cement below it. I know your tower that was put in, which is in the parking spaces, was one of the issues because the holes that were drilled through the bottom to put the conduits and electricity was one of the areas of concern. But I don't think just coating that and stabilizing it in terms of weatherization is probably not going to be a problem.
Okay.
I just want to let you know about it.
All right.
And that's all I can think of, really. At this
Yeah.
point.
Other than the plan's still identified as OU North Campus, so it actually is a City of Athens facility.
Right, and I did speak to Verizon about that because I know you had a concern about the name. It was named because of the coverage area. It covers the North Campus area. I did talk to them and tell them that you would like it changed to Parking Garage City of Athens, and they are working on changing it. So, I don't know that it'll be changed during this modification, but in the future, I told them that that was your concern,
Change it,
and I'll see if we can get it done for you.
Thank you.
But it was named only for coverage area.
Just to bring up one other item.
Yes.
We are actually, as I say, we're undergoing a renovation of it, which probably wouldn't affect any of the designs and what you're putting up. One of the conversations, of course, that has occurred is re-upping and reviewing the contract with you and Sprint, I guess, is the other entity. We'll probably be looking at that and might have to approach you guys for that.
Okay,
Mostly because the cost is going to be about $2 million when it's all said and done in terms of renovations. And therefore, if my memory is correct, the pricing was set pretty much by the footprint of parking spaces, and the parking space cost will go up as well. So I think in the contract there is a 120-day buy-in, if my memory is correct, or 100. So you might get a notification on that,
Okay.
just so you can communicate that with the non-technical entities of your organization.
okay,
Okay.
yep,
Actually, Beav, I have a copy that came with this of that lease agreement laying on my desk right now.
Okay.
So that I would not sign that until this was done, and obviously through follow.
Cross out and redo the name.
So I'll give that to you.
Okay.
Anything else? Do we need to take a vote then? Is there a
I'll make a motion to accept the design modifications, for the special use permit, 1503.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone disapproving? The vote is unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
thank you.
Moving on to communications, bed and breakfast discussions.
There's a couple things in here. If you look at your packet, you'll see some material that was letters, I think to and from various citizens. One from, I believe, Page Laws for some sites, or rather locations of definitions, which I have yet to visit. I guess I should do that. I was actually doing some of my own. There's another missive here, and it's 10 pages. But really the point is I started looking at the definitions between cities. I think one of the things we're looking at, and I put this on as a communication and asked for it to be put on the agenda to keep it as a front burner item. We don't have a good, solid definition of a bed and breakfast in our city. Some of the other cities have something. It falls into a short-term or transient hotel system. So I started looking at some of those. I haven't, I'm just going through the websites that exist for city legislation. Some have nothing whatsoever. In fact, if you look in Ohio Revised Code, there's very little in there as well. The only things that Ohio Revised Code, which I think is on pages 9 and 10 of the packet I gave you, it actually starts on 8, hotel definitions. And if you look at number 2, basically it says transient hotel, bed and breakfasts are in the bold at the bottom of page 8. I think the only other thing I put in there was let's see, at the top of page 8 was the exclusionary for a food license in a bed and breakfast, just to give you a flavor of what goes on. Some of the other cities I looked at, of course, and I'm still working through them, I kind of get sidetracked. I start looking at other cities' regulations and say, oh, that's interesting or cool. Included Cincinnati, Chillicothe, Marietta, Delaware. And really what I'm doing is just perusing. There's about 3 different sites out there that maintain city code. And I know it's probably not it's more of a hobby since I'm not being organized about going about doing it. The first page, of course, of this package is pretty much our code, what exists, definitions, as well as the tax, which I believe is in the other packet as well, how we go about, administering our transient guest tax. Cincinnati has interesting, they have both bed and breakfast homes and inns, which actually has a size difference. So it's interesting to see that type of definition. That'd be on page 3 for Cincinnati, where bed and breakfast home means an owner-occupied dwelling license for a rooming house pursuant to Chapter 855. No more than 3 guest rooms providing lodging, bed and breakfast accommodations with paying guests and maximum stay of no more than 4 consecutive weeks. Kitchen facilities are not provided for use by the guests. That's a home, and underneath a bed and breakfast inn is one that's no more than 5 guests as well. But at the same time, it's a lot, they obviously also talk about group residential, and I'm sure where that goes into the mix. I look at, say, some of the things we need to do probably is a definition, delineation of the parking requirements, which seem kind of vague, and then, of course, the process of different inspections I think we discussed.
I can share with you that I spoke with the State Fire Marshal's office, and I had a nice conversation with them. And if you look at our code right here, even at the bottom where it says on the taxes part in 150301, and even up above in the definition of hotel where it says 5 or more, anything 5 or more is really considered a hotel or motel, and the State Fire Marshal's office does inspect those. So if it's 4 and under, which if you look at B, where it says 4 or more, I believe that's a typo in our code. It should say 4 or less.
Okay.
Rooms are used for accommodation. For a transient, then that would be a bed and breakfast. He recommended we put an ordinance in there somehow where there's some sort of inspection method. I think we can continue doing that through our rental inspection. The majority of the people that are asking about this already have rental permits on their facilities, so our office can continue to do so on those. But he also thinks that we need to discuss time frame as how long a person can stay there, and also the cooking situation, because a lot of times some of these that have 4 bedrooms might have a large kitchen, but they do not have a fire suppressed hood. So a lot of towns where they're working, they're kind of emphasizing that if it's a 4 or smaller and not being inspected by the State Fire Marshal's office, that it almost be a continental type breakfast and not actually somebody frying and cooking, because they do not have proper cooking facilities.
Okay,
So,
I guess that's why I see in
recommendation.
some of these sections say the people who are at the bed and breakfast don't have access to the kitchen for that
Correct.
reason, I guess.
For that reason, yep.
Okay.
Now, you just said that the people that have contacted you have rental permits, so are you indicating that you do this no differently? I thought previously when we had discussed...
Yes, these will be viewed differently, but I think we would inspect them the same way. We're looking for the same stuff as the State Fire Marshal's office does when we do our housing inspections. So we would just do an inspection the same as we're doing on them already.
I think one of the things that had come out from this whole discovery phase was that you had property owners who said, I have a rental permit, why can I not allow this? So the distinction is important.
The distinction is, we need to get a definition for a renter in our code. That's another thing that we definitely need to get posted in here.
Okay, so I'm hearing definition of renter.
Yes.
definition of bed and breakfast.
Yep.
The biggest difference between a rental and a bed and breakfast, of course, is would be the transient guest tax.
The transient guest
So we have
tax
to
and the
put that
time
in
frame.
as well.
And by looking at this, it looks as if what Cincinnati and the ones you were saying, they have the 30-day, less than 30 days, et cetera. So, I think that might be a good model to start looking at is some of their definitions. But if it's less than 30 days, I don't know, that it would be the bed and breakfast or a daily, nightly stay or nightly rate versus 30 days or more, you're a renter. And it then yes, Paula, it's a different permit. I mean, a rental permit versus a bed and breakfast, but our office would do the inspections of both.
But how would you enforce that? I mean, the timing.
Well, the one's going to be paying the transient guest tax.
No, I meant the 30 days or more or less. It sounds like it's a lot of extra work for very little return.
How are we going to do it?
Yeah.
If they're calling a bed and breakfast and not a rental, then we can say, if we have questions about it, then we just start looking into whether they've been paying 30 days. Technically, they would have to pay, I believe, nightly a guest tax, I would assume, on the bed and breakfast. If somebody stayed there for 30 days in a row, they're paying on a nightly basis or a weekly basis. Or we just set up, you're right, that you cannot do any more stays greater than 30 days at one time. How do we enforce that? I'm not saying we can.
No, I don't think so.
But that's going to be trackable through the guest tax.
In other words, my concept of this is we would have to change, get definition of renter, definition of bed and breakfast with the 30 days, requirement of transient guest tax, which would be really the biggest cutoff right there. Somebody can't advertise as a bed and breakfast and not pay the transient guest tax. So they behoove anybody who's trying to do a student rental and turn it into bed and breakfast. They can't call it
In the
that.
summer, you mean, or something like that?
In the summer.
No, I mean, use it sometimes as a rooming house and sometimes...
They'd still have to be paying in as a transient guest, and unless, of course, that's a good question. I think they
That's a
rent
hard
them most of the time all summer long, though.
Well, see, I mean, my only experience in this town, but not in other towns, is with somebody renting it out for the weekend as a party house. And so everything I say will be governed by that experience, which was negative.
Okay, part of the other conditions you put in, some of the other definitions actually require the homeowner to be there.
I think that's absolutely essential in
Okay.
anything other than a business zone.
Okay.
I mean, they all have owner-occupied, owner-occupied in charge. But,
Well-
we do have the rooming house definition in our code, and it says, any residence or any part thereof containing one or more rooming units in which the space is let by the owner or operator to, it says more than 5 persons, but that could be altered with this new definition you're talking about, who are not members of the same family. This includes sorority and fraternity houses.
Yeah.
And then the rooming house, our code is archaic, but, we're bogged down on daily changes. Any room or rooms forming a single habitable unit used or intended to be used for living and sleeping, but not for cooking or eating purposes.
Right.
So we already have it in the code.
We want to leave that alone.
Yeah.
Right, for rooming house definite, and that actually matches the state and with what way we're charging people, is because once you get to 6 or more, that's where the state building department comes in, and it falls under a whole different realm of requirements, fire suppression systems, et cetera. So, yeah,
Okay, so let's, but my concern is that in a single-family area, and I think that those of us who live in areas, remember Paul said I was the only one in Planning Commission that had a lot that was in conformity with the code. In other words, we're talking about lots of lots that are 40 by 140, and the possibility for impact is going to be sizable. I'm not worried about how you collect the taxes. That's somebody else's job. I'm only worried about the zoning. And the zoning is the key point here. Are you, with this proposal, going to cause negative externalities for your neighbors? Will there be problems with parking? Will there be problems with noise? Will there be problems with somebody in Columbus renting it out over the weekend for a party house? And that's where, I want to see some safeguards there. The building code, they'll take care of it. Somebody else will.
Okay. I haven't even started to think about how to address the zones. Right now, conditional use is a bed and breakfast in R3 and on certain locations,
And certain roads, yeah.
certain roads.
State routes, yeah.
If you look at the Chillicothe, they actually have some criteria of what you can have and can't have in a bed and breakfast area in terms of square footage per dwelling unit. And they've chopped theirs up quite a bit. They have an R3, they have a RO, which is residential office district, and then they have this is starting on page 4. And I did not add all the things, because they went on and on and on, but the fact is, I was looking at this and saying, they have put various conditions underneath there, how much can be used. It's no different than, we put limitations on how much you can do in an R1 for a professional office, so much square footage.
But we're talking owner-occupied.
Yes, owner-occupied again. So this is, and that's what you're saying. You want it to be owner-occupied, so the owner is there, so you can't have that weekend party, you know.
Irresponsible behavior.
Irresponsible behavior, yes. So again, I wasn't even
enforce either.
Okay, I wasn't even looking at the zones that we would like to see this where the R1 and R2. Again, the Airbnb situation, I think, is what we want to get a better handle on. Make sure we are collecting transit guest tax, make sure the place is being inspected, make sure we have a definition of how long these people can be there, and the implications of it, including off-street parking. At least that's my concept. I'm open to other suggestions there. And again, this is just first dialogue of communications.
Oh, so we're not going to send
We're not
something
gonna-
out today?
No, hardly. This is part one of the homework, which I'm sure Paul and John are going to continue doing some homework.
I did some homework too. I went to our code to see what it was.
And I actually want to check the sites that Paige put in here in that letter that's in our packet.
Almost all of them say owner-occupied, so that was refreshing, but of the ones you've gathered together.
Yeah.
John, do you have any idea how many homes in R1, R2 are owned by students? In other words, parents who've purchased homes in those areas while their student is here on campus?
No.
I just bring
I
that
mean, I
up.
know the number of homes in R1s that are rentals, et cetera, but to tell you what percentage of those are owner occupied, if you want to call it that, even though they're technically not, I do not know the number of that. I don't think it's a very high percentage.
They always think of me.
Now, I just ask in terms of if, for instance, they rent some of the rooms out to friends or whatever during the school year, and those rooms are empty during the summer, are those people then capable of basically having transients come in for the weekend, for the week, or what have you?
Well, as of right now, no. But
Legally, you mean?
legally,
I mean, yeah.
they would have rental permits, even if it's owned by, even if they own their own house, and if they're renting it out to a friend who's not related, then they have to have a rental permit. And then in those times when those folks aren't there, no, because if it's in an R1 or R2 neighborhood, they're not permissible, and that's, what we've been going after.
The model we've seen since the early 90s, of course, is that a parent would buy a house, put a kid in there, their kid in there, have their kid rented out to their buddies from the hometown area.
Right.
So, and this is a model from University Commons that started. That's a condominium complex. Basically, there's all private owners there. Most of it is so they can collect rent, they can write off the mortgage, and they don't have to pay room and board for their kid because
Right.
they live here. So that has extended, and we've seen that out to the single-family houses as well. So, it's a rental. What happens during the summer? A sublease. The sublease are occurring all the time. I wouldn't not call that a bed and breakfast, but somebody says, I'm going to take off. I'm going to fill the house for the duration. So, how do we track that? It wouldn't come up in a landlord-tenant form.
It
that's
should.
for sure.
I mean, if we put the names on and required that.
Well,
Names aren't required.
I mean, I know. I mean,
that's once a
it's
year.
reached the point where it's meaningless, and I think we ought to just kill it. But
Oh, I don't think about that. I think it has some, and I say some, educational merit.
okay, so the other thing I wanted to say, and following up on RJ's, is that an R1 zone, you can have a group family of 3 unrelated individuals, and sometimes people torture the law and say, well, that's a husband and wife, and they can have 2 roomers, so they might get up to 4. I don't know. It depends who's interpreting the code. But it says, in an R1 zone, a group family, which I just defined, cannot keep roomers. So that would be, and I think you're enforcing that.
Yes, an R1 family can get a rental permit on their own house to have somebody renting off of them, and that's defined in there as a renter in R1 as an accessory use, but it does not define the term of how long that renter must be there. or
And then the
anything.
group family, though, cannot rent to roomers. I mean, they cannot take in
No.
additional people. I mean, people try it, I think, but they're not supposed to.
Right.
That was a hard-fought battle from the past.
I will say that, I mean, I hear that there's some concerns, and you had indicated, and it's captured in the minutes from the last meeting, about protecting the R1 homes. But I've also had it presented to me, what would you rather have across the street? I could be operating a bed and breakfast, or I could be 3 unrelated college students.
I think that people who say that, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense for them to make that threat. I mean, what we want to do is let everybody have their property rights. Everybody exercise their rights, and you shouldn't really have that kind of a choice, I think.
Why did people object to Timothy House?
Timothy House.
Oh, no,
Or
you
the
mean,
house down, I'm sorry, the house down on
Good Works.
Good Works, I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, because they wanted to triple the size for one, and make it a much, no, I don't think anyone's saying here if they were permissible in R1 that they would be granted more luxury than a typical R1 house. An R1 can have 3 non-related in it. You know, so I would say if a bed and breakfast was approved in an R1, that would be the maximum number that could be in it. But, you know, I'm just throwing that out, but
Sure.
Yeah, Timmy
there
House.
were other reasons, I think, for
Well, I think,
opposition
yeah,
to that.
but I think
But-
some of it had to do with the fact that it wasn't permanent residency.
No, well, I think living a block from it, I know they're allowed to have 15 people, whereas in R1 you can only have 3 unrelated. So I think the basic premise that was occurring, and they've had a series of variances given to them, both for the setbacks, the side setbacks, the back setbacks, occupancy. The last attempt that I remember is they were trying to actually take over the house next door and connect them with a hallway,
Right.
which ceases to even look like a single-family house. So I think that was a bridge too far in that sense. I think they're good neighbors. I think they've always been good neighbors. I don't think that's the problem, really, except how far do you push the nonconformity? I mean, do you start saying, well, you know, Bromley's nonconforming because of the height requirements now, but I suspect if we add, you know, just because that, and we need more student housing, maybe we should add 2 more floors to it. I mean, when do you start saying it's too far along at that point? And there are serious drawbacks to our code in terms of parking requirements, for instance. You know, we've been approached before with, it used to be Acme Co-op. I think it's on Elliott now. It's called The Vine. I think it's from the last magazine I saw from OU. They can't, really that's grandfathered in it because they have more than 3 people in there, but they don't have adequate parking. And this is what you're seeing, is that there are constraints of what we can do in terms of intensification of our zones. And I'm not an expert in this. I've lost track of what goes on because it's been many, many years since I've been on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Right.
some of the talk was also about people being removed from the premises at 8 and being out and about, and then not coming
Right.
back till 5.
But I think that what I'm getting at is I think the neighborhood was also responding, even with the expansion, what you're talking about, was still responding to quality of life issues for the rest of the neighborhood.
Yep.
And I think that when you start talking about Airbnb or bread and breakfast, that does have, I think, a strong possibility of altering the quality of life in a particular neighborhood, the predictability that people, I think, enjoy in a residential neighborhood, things of that nature. So those are the concerns that I have going forward.
We have to look at that.
Just remember that very same house can be a rental.
But not for 15 people.
Well, anything could be anything. I mean,
Right.
this can be, philosophy 101, that stuff, where what is life, what is reality stuff. I mean, there's a certain place, though, where you draw a line in terms of common sense and good neighborhood.
Well, okay, I realize I think that particular area in Central and West Side was downzoned from a duplex, R2 to R1. Same thing with the Morris near East Side. And again, it was in response to the, what was it called, migration? I forget what the strategic plan of 94 was saying.
It was a buzzword in the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
I need to know it now.
Yeah, transitory, migratory, where you lose a sense of community just because you have so many rentals there. I don't know if, again, I'm not ready to, again, we haven't really got a formal guidance from council what they expect to happen here. I know there's probably a need for this on certain days and certain events within the city. I would hesitate to put it down to R1s and R2s to start with, unless we have a very clear definition of what the result of that would be. And that's really why I started with the definitions. And I think there's more. Again, this is just more homework. We're going to be doing more homework before it's done. I noticed from looking at the minutes, which I totally thought we wanted to look at the PUDs eventually too. So that would be another homework assignment that we should think about. We put it back into zoning. How's that sound?
Yeah.
No, but I agree with you, but I also think it might be of value before you get into the details to really discuss the philosophy of what's going to go into the details. I think once you start putting in definitions and what you're starting to fast track something without really discussing what the values, the pros and cons can be in this situation.
I agree. Looking down the road, I think the definitions will give us guidance on where we want to go with it. Personally, I'm not ready to go down to an R1 or 2. I don't think that's the way I want to go with it. I'm actually very reluctant to say we're going to spread the footprint out to other streets besides what's already delineated. Maybe Stimson I could see as an adjustment, since I guess historically there was one on Campbell and Stimson, which when somebody mentioned it, I said, oh yeah, remember the one with the white picket fence, and then I remembered what they were talking about,
And
the
it
one on
went
the corner.
belly up.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I would say we need to get a better definition of what we want. We need to be able to collect the transient guest tax on those ethereal virtual reality bed and breakfasts that are out there, and have a better nailing that down, as well as the inspection, which is an issue because, yes, true, we inspect the rentals once a year, but this would be a different type of use. My concept of bed and breakfast really is, at this point, is it's not somebody who would abuse the landscape or the area. As somebody going into a bed and breakfast, I guess that's my stereotypical idea, is that they're tourists, they're here to experience the thing and not to make an experience for us by the weekend party or something like that.
Or a fire in the backyard, a pond fire.
Yeah.
I mean, many of us would not like that.
Well, I guess
chicken.
we could always put in definition of bed and breakfasts, since you can't. It's bed and breakfast. You can't be cooking out behind a bonfire behind it.
Well, the last time I went to
A bed and breakfast, you had a bonfire?
VRBO. I mean, there was a fire pit because it was out in the country.
Okay.
And we had a fire every night. It was fun.
Do you want to do that in town now, too?
No, I don't want to do it. I think that's the problem. We have a chock-full town, no parking, and, it's a slippery slope. I hope we can find the right...
There's nothing that says we have to do anything, except
I think we have
know
to
we
do
have
something.
Something, okay. But again, I don't know if that direction is to downzone it or not, to the other ones. Are you going to say
Did
something?
you want to?
I have a few comments.
Oh, sure. Come on forward.
Voting.
If you can just identify yourself, please.
Well, I'm Paige Allos, Director of the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And it's interesting, my dream about bed and breakfast and what we typically see our customers and consumers looking for is what the mayor described. But some of the unique challenges that the city of Athens presents, especially during certain times of the year, is more, I think, along the lines of what Nancy is wanting to avoid and what RJ is considering as well, which would be disruptive in a more residential area. And I think there's a happy medium there, but just a couple of things that I made notes of to consider in your homework is, other issues like signage. How will you identify so that the neighbors are aware that there's a bed and breakfast there? What would that sign look like? How big would it be? Would it be lighted? If we're talking about people coming home in the later hours or early hours of the morning, what kind of lighting needs to be required for safety purposes for those consumers to come in? How many parking spots? And here's a big question that I really want you to consider is that how many people will you allow per room? Because renting one room, you could have people who,
There's actually standards.
yeah, a
already
double
set
bed with
for that
27 people
size.
in it. I'm just saying that these are things that I think that you really need to consider, based on square footage. And then that leads to the second question is how many baths will you require per rooms available? Bed and breakfasts, some of them have private baths, some of them have hall baths. And there's no right or wrong way to go there. Everybody has their preferences about what they're willing to take as a consumer, but I think there needs to be some consideration for if you have 5 rooms that you're renting but only one hall bath, Obviously, consumers will drill down on that as well, but it's from a safety standpoint, what you're willing to go with or what stipulations you.
I think you're touching on something too that Nancy alighted to earlier, is how enforceable all this is. Because if you put in 3 or 4 people in one room and the hotelier, or whatever you want to call them, declares 1 person, 2 persons, then it's not enforceable.
Right.
It most certainly is. Bedroom sizes are established in our code already for housing code and in the state building code. So
Yes,
there's a number of people that can go in a bedroom based on the square footage, so that's our.
So if it burns, you can say you were, but just on a day-to-day basis, we'd like to find a way to enforce it if you're going to have it.
well,
That's what I know that it's down in the books, but what you're at a certain point, then you're
can you do?
relying
I
on
mean-
somebody's honesty that
Right. And I
doesn't
think,
live here.
in some ways you have to really rely on the host to adhere to the requirements. We think our hotels do a great job of that. Our cabin and bed and breakfast partners who are outside of the city of Athens, and there's a number of them, they do a great job of that as well. And many of them are owner occupied, but we also have a lot of people who have cabins that they don't live right next to or that they live a half a mile down from. That's just one of the considerations. I know Nancy mentioned, that the need for it to be owner occupied.
Only bed and
And-
breakfast, not VRBOs. But VRBOs should have a landlord that is responsible in town.
Right, they should have someone who's available 24 hours a day for
Absolutely.
emergencies. Exactly. And that, from the Visitors Bureau standpoint, that's our number one concern, is that once someone is on the lodging tax rolls, we're required to have them on our side and to promote them. But certainly there are safety issues, especially involved with just a spare room rental, that makes it a lot different from a regular, more traditional hotel rental or even a bed and breakfast, where you might have 2 or 3 or 4 rooms. And that might be something else to consider. There is a big difference between someone offering their spare room on a regular basis and someone actually operating a commercial bed and breakfast or inn operation. So that's just, one of our other concerns, and it's something that we see other communities deal with as well, particularly college communities. Had a lot of conversations with a couple of our college town counterparts on this as well. So,
I did see some literature and going through some of the cities on signage, required signage, and it was almost mirrored what we have in terms of signage by the zone. Other residential zones did not have backlit signage or large at that point, and they required a certain amount of discretion in its topic and everything. So, there are parking, of course. Again, I thought ours was a little bit fuzzy. Just because it says 1 dwelling unit, or 1 for each living or sleeping space. In terms of inspections, if you have 2 beds and 1 bedroom, that would be, again, we have capacities for that. 70 square feet for the first one, I think it is.
70 per person and 50 square foot for each additional person after that.
Yeah, so you can see that those are there in the inspection. If you see 2, I guess a foldaway couch could exist there, but
Right.
if you start questioning at that. So there are some checks and balances, although our inspection is, would not be as constant enough to track that, but in theory, if we are aware somebody's running a bed and breakfast that only has 3 beds and as advertised for 12, that's a problem. We'll recognize that, I think.
Right.
And again, this is still preliminary from my point of view. I don't expect to act on it. I assume we're going to need to discuss this more along the way.
that's all I
Paige,
have.
thank you, Paige.
Sure, thank you.
John, weren't the majority, or maybe all of the ones that you found that were operating as an Airbnb in R1 zones?
They're scattered, but they were mostly all but 1 were in residential zones. So, and the one that was not is the one, just so you're aware, that members of the Planning Commission at 48 Stimson, the Lamborn's property, they did get one of the letters from me. They applied to the Board of Zoning Appeals and were granted a temporary variance for 1 year until Planning Commission and City Council made some adjustments to this. So,
I don't see why they
So
put it
you're
all
aware.
right here, but that's me.
so the pressure's on.
Do you understand why?
I don't know why they just didn't give me
And
a
I think
variance.
that's, I think that we as a community can find an accommodation about the bed and breakfast. I mean, it makes sense. It's something that appeals to people. That's a plus. My concern is where it's going to be at. But I think coinciding with that, my biggest concern was the Airbnb as far as in the R1, R2s, and, just the wholesale renting out of places. So, ultimately, that's my biggest concern. The bed and breakfast is something that, I think can be worked out.
Okay.
And I think we know that people have rooms in houses that they rent to people that don't have permits. And they may use them for their tenders if they need extra physical help. I mean, the thing you hear again and again is, well, I can do with my property what I like. And I don't think, I don't see that we're going to be doing anything about those unless you can detect everyone who has an extraneous person living in their house during the semesters. And I don't think you can.
No.
I think we should stop that.
That's actually permissible.
To rent without a...
Not if you had medical assistants living with you.
No, I assumed that was, but the other one is you go on the website, or go on the departmental thing and ask people if they want to rent a room from you. So, that should be covered, but it isn't. And
You mean within the university faculty?
it could be anywhere, but that was the one I was...
Okay. Just asking. That's all.
Nobody in my department.
Anybody else would like to
Big brothers.
address the issue today? Otherwise, it's
No, for me.
continued discussion, and something that we want to probably check over the material, starting with the material that the mayor's given us.
As well as what Paige sent in terms of the links there. That would be the next thing to do.
Right.
Seems like it's pretty good.
Okay. Let's see, the report from the city planner.
Just a few things this afternoon. Monday evening at City Council voted to establish a historic district, city historic district for portions of Union Street that were impacted by the fire that happened in November. Our Preservation Commission was very excited about that. I think that's a very positive impact and positive thing for the city to be working on. Also, the Preservation Commission and myself are working on setting up a process to do inventory database of historic buildings within the city. That's not a registration process or anything like that. It's just kind of looking at buildings that might be worthy of registration and figuring out the details of them, the history and the why, the architectural features, the previous owners, and looking into that aspect. That's done. There's a program through the Ohio Historic Preservation Office to assist with that. It's basically a database system, so we're going to be enrolling in that. Also, the City Sustainability Commission, we had a working meeting last night. We're trying to move forward with getting the sustainability plan drafted. We've got, I think I gave you some of the literature or some of the documents a few months ago from our public workshop in October. But we're working on developing indicators of sustainability, so as we move forward, we can track progress. And we're also looking into or researching some best practices for sustainability, ideally at the local level. Businesses, property owners, landlords, anybody who might already be working on sustainability issues, so we can kind of single out what we think is working to encourage that throughout the city. That's all I have as far as on my notes here.
I found the presentation about Frank Packard very enlightening, how many
Yeah.
buildings have actually been, he's put a footprint on or fingerprint on. About 2 or 3 days ago, talk about sustainability side of the activities. About 2 days ago, I wandered into the Donkey there, and there was a large collection of landlords there. I guess Upgrade Athens has been talking to them about energy efficiencies.
Right.
That's more landlords I've seen in any one place any given time. So I was kind of amused as well as, obviously there's things going on I don't know about. But the fact is, it was interesting to see there was an
Did you run, or
interest.
did they run when they saw you?
I was just there for a cup of coffee. I didn't even drop in and say anything. I just noticed there. I recognized at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and I didn't even go peek around the table, to see who else was there. So
We've been talking about that with the Upgrade Athens and also the Sustainability Commissions, because a lot of the sustainability is talking about energy use and building envelope, and that's where you can make a lot of, you can achieve a lot of goals by having energy efficiencies within structures. One of the problems that we run into in a place like Athens is that usually those benefits, as far as the tax advantages, but also on the utility savings, the savings would be reaped by the tenant, but the investment would have to be borne by the property, the landlord. And so the landlord generally, or oftentimes, doesn't see the value in going into a deep green investment or infrastructure, because they won't be the ones who receive that benefit from cost savings on a monthly basis. So we've been talking about, are there other options or ways to encourage that so that the property owner can receive some of the benefits of doing better insulation, better windows, solar, et cetera.
I imagine if there was a glut of rental rental stock, then that would change. I mean, I look at it the same, in terms of energy efficiency, if you can offer a lower price for rental, that would be where it would come into effect.
And at the municipal level, we're tied to the Ohio Basic Building Code as far as the standards that we set. The city of Athens doesn't have the authority to require certain R values for insulations greater than what the state minimums are. So there's issues there that we're trying to find ways to solve that.
Okay.
That's going on.
Anything else?
Any other questions for Mr. Logue? Mr. Paskey?
I'll tee off a little bit what Paul said about West Union Street. I did meet with all the property owners this morning. So we're hoping to get moving forward on the demolition very soon with them. I kind of emphasized that that's what we were looking for, and it sounds as if they soon will be coming forth with some preliminary plans and elevations. I think right now, probably with the intention of going through the BZA and seeing what happens. I think that's the fastest way, and then if it didn't get approved for whatever they want to do, they would approach different methods from there. So, but I think that might be the first step, but I'm saying that cautiously because I don't know for sure yet. Things can change by tomorrow. So, but as of right now, that seemed to be the direction.
How much public funding will potentially be involved in this rebuild?
Public?
Public?
That's going to be up to each individual property owner to take, and they're not funding, it's going to be tax credits that they're eligible for.
Okay, I mean, so what's the value of it? I guess I just would like to know.
I have an estimate that each building is going to cost easily $1 million to rebuild.
Okay, and then how much do you think they could potentially, if they followed all the rules and did everything right? 300,000?
That they could,
Get in tax credits and whatever.
there's a ton of check, 10% and 25, what is it, too?
There's a 10% federal tax credit for any building that's just over X years old, if you follow standards. Some of those buildings are on the National Registry, which means that they're eligible for a 20% not U.S.
So 300,000.
That's just a credit. At the state level, there's a 25% grant program.
Okay.
It's a competitive grant based on a scoring system. That's potential 25% up to a $5 million investment.
I think we need to thank you guys for doing such a good job in helping them look at the
Trying.
money possibility. I mean, you can only try, and I appreciate the work you've done, because I'm amazed. When you started
Well,
talking,
it's important to note that council adopting that district was the key for, is actually the key for 4 of those buildings to be able to move forward with tax
and weren't we
credit.
lucky to have you guys know it and do it?
Patting themselves on the back, that 2 councilmen.
I mean, why not? I mean, neither of these guys planning development. We don't have to say anything to them. Thank you.
Also, I want to share with
Oh,
you
I'm sorry.
that in a couple, I don't know when it'll be, I received a request. We've not done this before, so we're making sure we got all the i's dotted and t's crossed. The Valley Acre subdivision, which is in a 3-mile, it's the Pioneer subdivision or mobile home park that was up across from the Athens Messenger.
That's its name.
Everybody know where I'm talking about. That was destroyed during the tornado.
Oh, that one, okay.
They are going to abandon the subdivision, making it all back into one large parcel. So we're in the process right now of working that out. Don't know exactly the route, but since there was an ordinance passed by City Council in 1977, I just felt it was probably best that whatever they come up with, even though it's going to be one large parcel now, that they come in here to officially get a recommendation from the Planning Commission to abandon it, and then it would have to go forward to City Council for them to officially rescind an ordinance that was passed in 1977. in essence.
As a trailer park, do we have to look at it in any terms of, the size of it to be reduced down to one lot? Do we have to worry about EPA, remediation issues? I don't know, I'm asking, that's all.
I've told the owner and his surveyor that they need to check on all that stuff, all the easements, whether they're private or public, that they're abandoned, street easements, utility easements, et cetera. Some of them might be
Is that it?
utility easements that are through the property, that those would have to remain, whatever it may be. But so they know what they have to do, and I've been talking to the law director's office that we follow what I hopefully is the right course, because not very seldom do we get someone come in wanting to go the opposite direction. So
Did the property change hands, or is it still in the?
Mr. Hayes owns it. And there's a chance that then he may want to split this property into larger, 3 different properties down the road. But that's just, he says he doesn't know, 2 to 3, doesn't know what will happen with it.
What's the flood situation there?
Part of it is in the flood.
Okay. Wait,
Yes. I'm sorry?
is some of it not usable? Does it have a Clomar on
It,
I
no.
don't think there's
I
any
don't think
floodway.
it? No,
Not
there's no, all
floodway.
right.
It's
So
about
it's
a third
just
of it.
fringe?
Flood fringe,
Flood
about a
fringe,
third of it
yeah.
roughly is my
Okay.
recollection.
Running along the railroad tracks,
Right.
if I remember right.
So
That part of it's in the flood.
potentially good.
So, but anyways, that will be coming forth sometime soon. I believe it's probably the best recommendation to come through here first and then the council to have it abandoned. And the last thing, I don't know when it's going to come through, it's a couple meetings away, is I have received the application for the integrated services. They have some things they need to correct that I called them on. So I'm filling you in on that because it's been in the paper. So you're probably wondering if they're coming through, but they purchased the car wash property over on Charles and wish to tear it down and build a first floor commercial with residential above. Total of 7 beds, I think all they have. So
And that's going to be Title 41.
that'll be a Title 41. Yes.
One unit with 7 bedrooms? Is that
Definitely a
what you
Title 41.
Okay.
said? Did you say one unit with 7 bedrooms, or did you say?
They have, the first floor is commercial, the second and third floors is a varying range of,
I'll get an email before this thing is over. That's what I wanted to know.
there's, I think, 3 2-bedrooms and
Okay,
4
different units.
1-bedrooms or something like that.
Different
Total of
units.
7 units. I
The
believe.
model that was there across the street, right? Similar to
Similar,
that?
yes, yes.
With
Yes.
That's what I
commercial on the
understand.
first floor?
Actually, there's more, yes, but there's
Okay,
more,
that's all
there's more, this one has quite a few 1-bedroom units in it,
Okay.
so.
And this will go from Charles to Graham, I think it is, or Graham
It
to...
does go through Charles to Euclid.
Euclid, okay. Because they own both lots, and the car wash is going to disappear.
Correct.
Okay.
Dirty.
Just for information's sake, what is the status of the one on Richland Avenue car wash? The one that needs a Title 41 as well?
They have not come back with anything as of yet.
Okay, just asking.
Started on this story.
Any other questions for Mr. Paskey? Okay. Moving on to opportunity for citizens to speak. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the commission on anything we haven't talked about so far? Is that cut? No, okay, we're getting there. Let's see.